Yes, welcome to this episode of my podcast, Anneke Lucas, and I am still in the UK, and I am very, very happy to interview this person. She's my friend. I was very happy to meet her in person and even work with her already. She organized the SRA conference, which was held here in the UK. That was a massive event. It was, I believe, an extremely important event. And I saw Jeanette when she first spoke out 3 years ago, and immediately felt that this is a voice that will be heard far and wide. And so before I introduce her to you, I just want to remind you that obviously I've come a long way. We are sitting here, we're not recording this on my iPhone. Lee, thank you very much. We have professional help, and of course this is coming out of my own pocket. So I know that donations have come in. I'm very grateful. It's not nearly beginning to cover what I've spent on the podcast so far. I will keep this going as long as possible, but if you can donate, I would very much appreciate it. You can find the donate button in the description, and you can also find it on my website. So without further ado, I want to begin this conversation with my friend Jeanette Arche. Jeanette.
Hello.
Hey.
Thank you for having me.
My goodness, it's a really, I'm just so happy that we can do this together. And it was so good to meet you. I have to tell everybody how loving you are.
Oh, thank you.
How sweet and loving you are. Because we know your fierce side. I know your fierce side. It is, I get the chills. You're a very powerful person. I love when you speak. And I love how you make people hear you.
Yes. That's the idea. Yeah.
Yes. So for those who may not know you, would you be willing to just give an overview, as short or as long as you would like, about what happened to you in childhood?
Yes, absolutely. But thank you for that lovely introduction. It's really nice when people do see other sides to me, because obviously the fighter and the warrior that's trying to expose this evil is generally what people see in the public domain. But it's nice when people actually do get to meet me in person and see that I'm a nice person.
Very nice.
It's just it's not just the fierce thing. So thank you for that. Yes, so I was born into a multi-generational satanic cult family. As far as I know, my whole family were part of a satanic cult. That was parents, grandparents on both sides, uncles, aunts, the children. It was everybody, as far as I know, were a part of the satanic cult, and it was multi-generational for sure. So from birth to 3 years of age, I was being prepared in the home for the rituals that I would then endure from age 3. And then from age 3, we were, within my family, that was the age where we were then handed over to the cult and or sold into other smaller cults for the sake of my parents earning money. So I was prostituted from the age of 3 for their own money making. So yes, I had to endure from birth to 3 years old, learning how to tolerate water rituals, drowning, being prepared for obviously the rapes and the torture and all of everything that goes with being, a victim in a satanic cult. And then I was handed into the big cult, which was then what I now recognise to be the elites of this world, and I was there really enduring ritual after ritual, and probably thousands of rapes by hundreds of people. I was also trained as an MK Ultra super soldier, so maybe that's where the fierceness comes from. And yeah, I had a handler who I was regularly at the Tavistock with here in London here in the UK. So I think really my main MK Ultra, the super soldier side, where I was used to carry out their atrocities, was probably more the second decade of my life, even though I was still being used in rituals through those years. From what my memories have allowed me to see so far, I believe I got out age 22. So that's the summary, really.
Wow. Yes, there's so much in what you said. You know, you digest it, you speak very well, and then yet what it means, what you say, is just so absolutely devastating to that little girl that went through that. So I just want to say I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think if I focused on the enormity of the trauma every single time I spoke about it, I wouldn't be able to do what I do.
That's absolutely true, yeah. Obviously, we have to pick and choose.
Yeah.
Yes, and meanwhile, you know, going through our own traumas, we are able to speak about things without going into the feeling all the time. That's just the truth. We just say what it is, because we've all felt everything already.
Yes, and I think as well, I know you've spent many years in healing and recovery yourself, and the same goes for me. I think I literally shut myself away for 20 odd years before I even considered speaking out publicly.
Yeah.
So I think that obviously laid a very strong foundation for me to be able to do what I'm doing now.
Absolutely. Yes, that healing, these decades, they're really necessary. I mean, maybe not for everyone, because times are changing and people are healing.
Yeah.
When I was healing, I didn't find anyone who knew this. And so my therapist didn't actually know.
Yeah, same. Yeah, same for me.
Okay.
And I've had two amazing therapists that I've had for 2 long chunks of time. But I feel the first one especially, for them to be able to help me with satanic ritual abuse, because back in those days I didn't even know it had a name.
Right.
You know.
Right. Same here.
And I would have had to have taught them to be able to help me in the end. So this, you know, this.
And we do, right? We do.
We do.
Kind of
exactly.
teach them to help us.
Yeah. Yeah. The second therapist, obviously, at that point, I knew it was satanic ritual abuse, and I knew so much more. But then the next phase, and the next phase, and the next phase comes, and for me, really, I'd say the last couple of years have been about the MK Ultra, the super soldier training, and the DID, which is also an extremely beneficial tool once you can relate to your inner world and different parts, because they come in very handy, you know. So I think when people say to me, I think someone said it the other day about how on earth did you do that, you know, with the conference, and I just said, well, DID is very useful because I wasn't alone, you know. So, and if I need to step down and someone else can step in, and you know, we're a team. And
that's right.
I think when you learn to work with that, life can become easier to do this work.
Yeah. Well, there's a few things. someone at the conference actually said that mind control slaves use a larger part of their brain because, of course, because of all the trauma, different parts of our brain were lit up in order to accomplish these various tasks. And I think that's true, that the parts come in, and of course we are in charge. That's what's important for you and me, that it's you and me who are in charge, or there is a front person who is directed and is guided and is connected, rather than a slave to the network. So all these parts that have been trained, I feel that yes, a lot of my parts at least are happy to be of service, for another purpose, not for the purpose for which they were created.
That is such an important point, because I remember for quite some time the part within me that was the super soldier and has those abilities to carry out the tasks that were given to her. I wanted her to remain that part with those abilities forever, because she was my protector then, I could turn to those abilities. But it was actually speaking to you that made me realise something that I've worked on since, about I have to just let her step down and not feel like she has to be that person, because actually those abilities that she has and used and was used for, I have them anyway. So, Jeanette, the front person, I've been able to say to all my parts now, relax, step down. You don't need to be the super soldier, the sex slave, the so on and so on and so on. The child held in captivity, and the child that was the pleaser for everybody, and so many different roles. So this is why I think when you can let them all off the hook, so to speak, they haven't got to be that role anymore, the inner world becomes so much happier, and then it can bring the front person, so much more inner peace and quiet, and you can really then truly start to rest and not feel exhausted every day, because everyone's trying to play their roles, and it's like everyone can just rest now.
Yeah, I mean, that is integration. I call that front self, I actually call parental self, which is sort of how I get the distance from the parts. Like, I have a little trick for that. Shall I tell you?
Yes, please. Because I love learning this stuff. Because I do actually see the front part of me as the parent as well.
Right.
And I parent all of them in the way of I keep everyone, whether it's loved or disciplined or whatever, I am definitely that parent. But yeah,
right.
Tell me.
So to get in parental self, so it's actually like any mindfulness. It's a mindfulness exercise, but I call it the 4 C's. So I look at myself. These are 4 C's. I look at my hand, 4 C's. But I used to go like that, because if I'm in a part, it just helps me to get out, to do something tactical. So the 4 C's are, am I calm? There's 4 C words. Am I connected? Am I compassionate? Am I curious? And if any of those 4 are missing, then I know I'm in a part, which I wouldn't be doing this unless I was obviously in some kind of a part or feeling or, like a reaction that helps calm me down. But then as soon as I think calm, connected, compassionate, curious, I immediately get that distance. I take a few deep breaths, and I just, it doesn't always work. Sometimes I have to be in a part, right? Sometimes I have to just be in that part because something is coming.
Exactly. So it's necessary.
Yep. So sometimes the part needs to express. But if it's just something that happens and you're not really observing, then it's a good way for me to go and, get that little bit of space, create a little bit of space and just to look at it and then immediately find that. Because once I say compassion, it's like, okay, it's not hard to find inside of me.
Yeah.
So that, or sometimes, I'd find that I have those, but not curiosity, and that's an interesting one. It's like, I'm not interested, and the not being interested, it's...
I mean, that's perfect, but because also when you said curiosity, I immediately thought, because that's the one I struggle with, because there's such a big part of me that's like, well, no, I need to be in control here, and sometimes it's just too exhausting to keep worrying about all their needs. But what I like about curiosity as well is the fact that my parts want to be curious too. And I have to find the compassion to allow that, especially the smaller ones, So I struggled with allowing them to be curious and them to have the time and the space to evolve and to learn and to ask questions. So the curious part for me is very important for me and them.
Well, I can imagine that. The super soldier that you were trained, I was never trained as a super soldier. I was trained physically because I had to be healthy.
Yeah.
And I had to be in good shape and I had to be flexible for the sex. So I was trained physically. And I'm still doing that. I keep doing it. I keep doing the yoga.
But now for your own benefit.
Only for me. It's my health insurance. It keeps me healthy to do yoga every day. So, but now what they taught me to do and made me do, really, more like boot camp, but it was not that different from the yoga practice that I do, strangely. It wasn't breathing into the poses and holding them, but it was similar movements for strength and flexibility.
Yeah.
So,
aesthetics and fitness to look good for what you were being trained for.
Exactly, yeah. Secretly. Because I had to look like I just rolled out of bed.
Yeah. Secretly, of course.
Yeah. And then secretly do a lot of work to look that way.
Yes.
But I can see that you're a super soldier, that this super soldier became an enormous protector, like almost larger than life protector, and that a lot of people have found that protection from you, that really a lot of survivors and a lot of people have seen the protector, and that protector turned against, the perpetrators and turned towards the children.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful force.
Yeah. And before I even recognised my MK super soldier training, I always had this very strong trait as a protector. Whether it be my friends or, family or whatever, it was just one of my most dominant characteristics, personality traits. I'm a protector first and foremost over everybody, and then obviously I started to understand why. But yes, what they taught me to do and used my abilities for, I then turned back on them this one fine day and walked away from a bloodbath.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
So the memory that I have of it to this day, because also my parts are very loving towards me now. So I this second decade, because for some time I thought I was free from sort of 10, 11-ish, and then discovered this second decade. So my parts just gently sort of feed me in little bits and bobs, and it's not, I don't get that tsunami of memory recovery now, the ones that just put you on the floor for weeks. And So I'm gathering the information at a point that doesn't disable me in any way, shape or form, which is just beautiful. So what I have to date, because I asked, you know, the part of me that went through this, I said, I really want to know how I got out. You know, that was my burning question. How did I get out? How did they let me walk? You know? And then what I've recovered, the memories that I've recovered and been shown, is that at 21, when I was 21, there was a huge ritual on my behalf. I do think that they were preparing me to go on to be a powerful woman in the cult. I'm sure there's terminology for it, you know, Mother of Darkness or something like that. But again, I haven't got the correct wording yet, so I don't want to just, you know, assume. But I was being prepared for something at age 21. And I remember literally that big ritual at age 21, and then I remember being 22. So a year must have gone by. I was definitely 22. And I was in a ritual scenario, and I remember the rage that came up inside me, because I was looking around at all these vile, disgusting creatures, and they were laughing at what the children were going through on the, you know, the sacrificing, the, you know, the mutilation, the raping, the drinking the blood, and they were getting high on adrenochrome. And it was one of the things that I always despised, like so deep within me, was how high they would get on adrenochrome. And these squealing noises they'd start to make, and so on and so forth. So this was happening this day, and the rage just kept coming and coming, and I was an observer at this ritual. So that tells me by now I wasn't actually being tortured and raped in the ritual. I was being made to observe the ritual. And I just remember seeing all this laughter, and something in me just took over. Obviously it was the assassin, and all I remember was the rage, and then I remember the aftermath. And the aftermath was,
a bloodbath
of them.
Not the bloodbath they created.
Exactly. And I think I left probably 3 of them standing. And they were cowering, then begging me to not do the same to them.
I guess I shouldn't be laughing, but I wish I could have seen that.
Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't you feel that? You know, what justice have we ever had in that respect? And
Exactly.
Those are moments.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly, when it's turned on them, because
yeah.
those children, yes, there's so much mockery, and the sadism is so beyond extreme. That's why people don't believe it. They don't believe us, because it's so beyond extreme that sadism, like on that level, can exist by people that you see on television. So,
and that was the day I walked away.
And they let you go.
They did.
Yeah.
I remember one of those 3 men, I heard him say, go and get her to the other 2. And then I heard another one of them say, no, let her walk, let her go. I think they knew they'd lost control. And that's my memory up till now, you know. Probably don't need to remember any more of that.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you remember, because you said your entire family It's the satanic family and it's generations.
Mm.
So now you've walked away. You've been prepared from birth. When you say preparing a baby for being raped, we know what that means. There's also things that people are told to do, actually taught to do, that I've read about, I've heard about. And then at 3, you were offered to the cult, and you were raped in this cult, and then you were trafficked, sex trafficked, mostly, usually, both in the cult with famous people, with the elite, and we're in the UK, and as well, your parents on the side of that prostituted you out, and then got just paid for it. So what they did in the network, it gave them status. When they gave you out in the network, it gave them something too?
I don't know, because I don't ever remember my parents having any status of any kind. They remained in poverty, and I grew up on poor areas of London, so I don't remember my parents getting status at all. I think I was taken because it was my grandfather that ran the farm that belonged to the Crown Estate, and he was the cleaner there, the fixer, the one that cleared everything up afterwards.
Crown Estate, what does that mean?
It means it belongs to the royal family.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So it was royal land.
And he was the cleaner.
He was the person that organised all the events there, all the rituals and the dates and all the rest of it. I think I was taken there as just another one of those children, that were taken for rituals within the generational families. And I think their seers, their people that spot these children with abilities, spotted me. Gotcha. And I was taken. I don't think my parents benefited with status at all.
Wow.
Not that I'm aware of.
No
I didn't see them climb any heights of, their life didn't improve in any way, shape or form.
It's interesting because I know other survivors that had to do with the UK royals that also did not really get any status. But in Belgium, it was sort of like, and even also at the American, with the American, it was sort of whatever you really wanted. So if you really wanted something, you could get it, but it was about asking. So if you forgot to ask and you were poor, maybe you didn't ask because you didn't think you could. And that what people got at the lowest level was always protection.
Okay.
Protection from being caught as for pedophilia, or protection from whatever other crimes they may be involved in.
Yeah, well, that would make a lot of sense, because obviously my family were overtly abusing children, satanically abusing children. There was a local pub in the area where us children would be taken frequently, that had a room with a big round concrete slab that, I don't know, I say but I don't know if it's ever happened to you, where I would be tied onto it, with arms out, legs out, and it would spin, and then wherever it stopped, that person was allowed to rape me on the stone slab. And so this was very openly going on.
It's like a millstone.
Yeah, millstone, exactly.
So I actually have heard a survivor in Holland describe the same thing.
Okay, yeah.
With the Dutch royals involved.
Wow. Yeah, and this was in the back room of a pub in southwest London. So it was very obviously going on within that area of London, and it would make sense that what they got was protection, because it always went on,
They were never caught.
no one ever paid any consequences.
Yes, and that if they ever did get in trouble, then somebody somewhere along the line would get them off. That was really what I learned from, this. So your family was doing this to you. They gave you away willingly. They trained you in everything, and then you were picked out, it seems. So, at age 3, maybe you were screened. They do triage, and
Spotted.
They do find your special gifts. They're going to find them. And then you get their training. When was your family very involved, other than sort of babysitting you after you were picked out?
I don't think they had a say in much after that. I remember, I have memories of my mother taking me to the Tavistock and handing me over to the men in the white coats.
So this is a Tavistock Institute in London,
yes,
correct?
Yes. Obviously, I have memories of my parents taking me to rituals in all different houses. I do remember my parents taking me to the farm, which was the Crown Estate. I do remember my mother being present also at the bigger royal estates occasionally. But what would happen quite frequently as well was that the police would come to my house where we lived, just a small maisonette, and my mother would have me dressed and ready to go and open the door, and they would take me off and deliver me. The police, in uniforms. They would quite often rape me in the car before I was even delivered to the royal estates, and that was when I was dropped off at places like Windsor Castle and Buckingham Palace and the bigger royal estates where the hunting games and everything like that went on.
So the police served as handlers, and those police that are then of course involved in that, they are themselves involved in rapists and compromised, and so
they become the protectors then.
Yeah.
Because that's how nobody ever gets charged, and to this day now that's still the pattern.
Well, nothing's been done to change it.
Not yet.
Except for you speaking out and us speaking out.
Exactly.
That's really all that's being done to really create a difference, that's to raise awareness.
And it's a good start.
It's a good start. And again, your family, I see how your mother was involved, which was, even though she was within the network, because they were not, let's say, high-placed in the network, there was very little control they had over you. So they were really just delivering you. And then your grandfather had a more important role as sort of the cleaner / keeper and mind control trainer for a lot of people. And you've shared things before about the farm, so it sounds like that time and that place was just absolutely horrifying as well. And then he was too. And then when you were 22 and this happened, what you described, and they let you go, your parents not really being very important in the network and sort of having delivered you to the network for all these years, when at 22 you created the bloodbath in the network and they let you go. How did this affect your relationship with your family?
I think I was still in such a heightened state of trauma. I had severe amnesia about everything that had gone before. So I tried to just make life normal and create some kind of persona that would fit into the world. And I'd been doing that anyway,
Right.
you know. You definitely exist in two different worlds, and you have to somehow, well, you just become a master of disguise, let's face it. I certainly did. So I think because I was never, you know, taken away from my family for like years at a time or anything like that. I'm sure it was probably days at a time or a couple of weeks at a time, you know, at the most. So I was still living in my family world. So I think I just carried on that way. And then from 22 for the coming years, I just got iller and iller, you know, more and more mental illness. I started to have a lot of mental health issues, and I ended up as an outpatient, what was then called the National Hospital for Nervous Diseases in London. I managed to beg and plead to stay as an outpatient, so I didn't have to be admitted, because that was literally would have been my idea of hell again. And then at age 28, I had my suicide plan in place, and that's what I was going to do. I knew something horrific was wrong with me. I also had started to notice in the build-up to that this rage I felt towards my mother. You know, feelings were coming up, feelings were coming alive. I wasn't dead inside any longer, and those feelings were becoming unmanageable. You know, I couldn't even sit in a car next to my mother. I remember once her dropping me off to work or something like that, and me just like, oh my God, this rage. And I was thinking, what's wrong with you, Jeanette? You know, this is your mum. And I was so trapped in just the feeling, but had no memory recall whatsoever at this point. So at age 28, when I was going to commit suicide, because I'd had that suicide plan in place for a long time, you know, and I say now, actually, it was my suicide plan that kept me alive, because I had always that comfort of that backup, you know. I can go at any time. I can release myself from this hell at any time. So my suicide plan kept me alive. And then at age 28, I remember just sitting there going, okay, what's wrong with me? And talking to whoever, you know, you've got to show me, because I knew I was hiding stuff from myself. And I just looked up and said, show me, or I'm leaving, I'm coming home. Because I know what's there, you know, from all my near-death experiences and so on and so forth, and out-of-body experiences. And, you know, for me, that's like going to be a wonderful day, you know. So,
yeah, we're not afraid to die.
No, my God, no. I promise you, if anyone's ever worried about it, don't be, because it's the most beautiful thing in the world.
Well, it depends on your life. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I don't think there's any life that will beat that feeling. But anyway, I don't encourage anybody, let me make that clear. I'm not encouraging you to leave the planet. Yeah. I'm just saying don't fear it if it's coming. So that was my decision, show me or I'm leaving. And the very next day I woke up and I opened my eyes in the morning, and it was like someone had a TV screen in front of my face, and I got my first flashbacks. And it just was like watching this thing in colour. And I got that intensity of flashbacks for the next 5 years. And it just... my world just went to pieces. And I remember just metaphorically thinking, scrabbling on my hands and knees, just trying to find a piece of something that I could start to rebuild with and start to make sense of. And yeah, literally blood, sweat and tears of getting through those years. And then I did start to rebuild, and I did start to try and, start piecing it together. I'd get memories. My very first flashbacks was of my uncle abusing me. And then it would be another family member and another family member. I mean, my mum, really, I didn't remember my mum's participation in any of it till years after that. I think she was the last one that I remembered. I still saw her as the loving mummy, and because that's the role she played, the saviour. She was the one that was there when I was being horrifically tortured down one end. She'd be up the other end stroking my hair. There, it's okay, mummy's here. Yeah. That was her role.
Oh, wow.
She was the one when I was put in a coffin after a ritual and buried underground that was allowed to be there when they brought me up. And the rescuer, lift me out of the coffin and then take me in for some food and water after I'd been starved for days. So that's how she stayed as that figure in my head for years. So yeah, but it was age 28 when I started to recover the memories. I started to speak out to my family. I was given the ultimatum, shut up or you're out. And I walked away. Cut them all out. Well, they cut me out. I decided, because it was either stay living in the lie and silence or go it alone and live in my truth. And that's obviously what I did.
Yes, and that is a process that actually, and I speak to people, this process, it's an isolating process because now you've lost your family. So once you decide to choose for truth, I mean, you said 5 years, but yes, I remember the time when it was just really hard to get through the day.
Yeah.
Because the tears were just making my face hurt so much because I was crying so much and I could barely move and still I had to get up or not, and I just had to grieve, and it was just so grueling. And in the depth of grief, I wouldn't necessarily get new clarity.
No.
In the beginning, I had weeks of grief, and then I had clarity of something, and then that was like, okay, I can. That keeps me going.
Yeah.
I have the insight now, and I feel that I even felt right away that it's not just for me, that I feel it for me, but it's like it's like a mathematical formula that what I am uncovering here, that this is for me, but this is also larger than just me, which I think it's vibrationally. It makes a difference when we face our shadow and uncover the darkness, and where we have the courage to feel the repressed feelings and look at them. That brings itself, I believe, brings this awareness into the ether more clearly. When we see it more clearly.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, those days where literally the tsunami of emotions hit you, and like you say, even at that point, you don't even have clarity. You have to get through that tsunami of emotions first. But I wouldn't go back there for anything. But I also don't have one moment of regret for doing it.
No.
Because it's so worth it when you do then get your moment of clarity and understanding of everything that's attached to it, because then it heals. And I've always instinctively somehow knew, just keep searching for that, keep searching for that, keep searching for the purpose, keep searching for the whys and the hows, and because as soon as something makes sense to me, it heals and it leaves me. And that is literally been my mantra. It was like an inbuilt instinct for me. And that's what I always try and encourage in other survivors that are new to the feelings side of
the
it,
overwhelm.
you know.
Yeah,
oh my
incredible
gosh.
overwhelm.
There's not even a word to describe it, is there, you know? But once you actually then can start piecing it together and making sense of things, the healing truly starts. And yes, I believe universally that on a divine level, every survivor that starts to break their silence and start their healing journey, which in whatever way that is unique to them, our light just joins up and just gets bigger and brighter and stronger. And this is why their darkness is diminishing. So this is all it takes. Because if you imagined, if every single survivor on this planet spoke out and broke their silence, it would be over for them. They would have nowhere left to operate because they depend on silence. That is their strongest weapon, and exposure is their greatest fear. So as long as we keep doing this, we're breaking it. We don't have to have a courtroom to tell us what happened to us. We don't need that kind of justice. This is our justice. We are going against every single thing they tortured us for.
That's right.
We're speaking.
That's exactly right. That's very inspiring.
That's why I do what I do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if people can look at me and go, well, she's still alive, she's doing it, you know, she's functioning, and that can just inspire one more and one more and one more. And I always knew that was my purpose as well, my reason for still being here. Because we're all walking miracles, let's face it. Really.
Yeah,
you know.
We are walking miracles, that's true. We should have died 1,000 times. And the last thing I would like to focus on, and I know this may seem like a very incomplete interview, but this is what came, and I feel it's so valuable, what you shared, and maybe not what you share every day. But that path that you say, you know, like it was so hard, it is so difficult, you're crawling on the floor, you're describing, and yes, this isolation, once you lost your family, now you are isolated. And I'm assuming that, like myself, people just fall away because they can't handle it. And you are growing, with the healing that you're doing, you're growing in awareness, you're becoming more clear, you're becoming more integrated, and you're able to use your willpower, and that healing, which leads to your path, really, nevertheless takes you through a very narrow, dark tunnel where there is really, seems like, complete isolation, the dark night of the soul, maybe.
Yeah.
So, if you would like to speak to that I would be very grateful.
I think it's necessary that everyone falls away, because for me, in one day, I lost 3 sisters, 1 brother, 8 nieces and nephews. They were the family left in my life. Obviously, before that, I'd walked away from the parents already. But when I was told, this is your ultimatum, you either live a lie or you live in your truth, but you'll lose us. To me, there was no choice. I was never ever going to live one more day in that lie and covering up the truth. So yes, what organically then happens is everyone else around you starts to go too. Friends, betrayals happen, and people fall away. Now, for me, I believe that is a very necessary process, because when you are living in denial or with repressed memories and, all the things that we're in before we're recovering memories, we can only then attract people in our lives that we believe we deserve. And when we are trapped in our lie, we also, what goes hand in hand with that is that we have zero self-worth, zero self-esteem, zero self-love. You know, I didn't even believe I deserved an inch of space on the planet to exist. You know, so how can we possibly at that point have anybody in our lives that are going to be healthy for us? It's just the law, you know, it's a law of attraction thing, you know. So it's necessary that all of it goes. You have to strip back to bare everything, you know. I used to sort of visualise like a big whiteboard and, you know, all the writing on it that was my life as I knew it, and I had to just wipe it all clean. And then there it is. I have got a big whiteboard there that is a clean space, and I now get to choose what I put on it. You know, I get to choose, actually, what do you like to eat? What colours do you like? What clothes do you like? You know, I had to build this identity from truth, not from what was built for me or what I tried to take on because I had to be a master of disguise, you know. So it's so necessary to go through that process. If you're fortunate enough to have a friend, just one friend or two friends, or whoever, that can go through the next part of your journey with you, then I think you've been sent an earth angel, you know, that's there for that purpose. But generally speaking, I think it's necessary. I think you have to go through all that loss. But it is completely worth it, because as soon as you then start to heal and recover and live in your truth, then authentic, loving, compassionate people will find you.
Exactly. Thank you for speaking to this. I think this is an important topic. You inspire many survivors, but these are some of the details. It is very difficult. It is gruesome. I work with people who are in that place where they're crawling, you know, where they can barely see the light at the end of the tunnel. And yet they're going through it because they intuitively know that they're on the right path, even if there's little or no benefit result in the physical realm. They just get a little bit of clarity. But meanwhile, things seem to get worse even. But they're in that phase of where everything drops away. And everyone drops away. And I think what you have to say on that is very inspiring because of who you are.
It's a really tough place to be, but I think it's also so important to remember, if you are speaking your truth, you are creating your light. And that will bring you through the tunnel.
And I want to say speaking truth, because, you know, it's not like it's my truth versus your truth. It's truth. It is truth versus denial.
The truth.
The truth.
It is the truth. It's non-negotiable.
Yeah, no, we're in the physical realm. There's things that happen. I have my hand on the table. That's a fact. We all agree on that. That's why the physical realm has that grounding ability. There's a relative reality here that we can all see and accept. And our relative reality is this.
Yes.
And therefore that is the truth. That is not a spiritual truth. That is just the physical facts of what we lived through. And to confront that and to stick to that, that is a spiritual journey, I believe.
It is mind, body and spirit. It affects every single part of us. But your spiritual truth will be the strongest part of you that will keep you going until everything is at peace.